we ask that all participants In addition, we ask that all participants stay muted through the presentation. You may choose to post your question into the chat as we go through our presentation this evening. And then we will have a discussion at the conclusion of the presentation. We will be rotating between in-person speakers and anyone online. So please hold off on any comments until the end, and we will queue you up to be able to speak. So with that, we will go ahead and get started with tonight's presentation. The first slide tonight is just looking at our enrollment. This is something that we've presented in our previous meetings, but want to make sure we share this information again. One of the main reasons we're reviewing this information is we've received some questions about the budget and funding, especially since the governor just recently made an update regarding what the budget looks like for the coming school year across the state. Unique to this funding that we're discussing tonight within the LCAP, our supplemental funding, that is generated specifically by unduplicated pupil count. And those pupils are our students that are free and reduced meal program participants, our foster homeless youth students, as well as our English learners. They're identified as unduplicated because a student may meet multiple criteria, but they still only count once towards our overall total of students. And I've identified a couple of cells on this table that I want to draw specific attention to, and that is our total enrollment as well as our participation in the free and reduced meal program. Both of those numbers have been decreasing, especially in the last 2 years. So that is why we're talking about a reduction in budget for the coming school year, as we anticipate those numbers to trend or continue to trend in that direction, causing an overall decrease in the number of students that bring in funding. I will identify too the English learners that we've had an increase in our English learners, and that has been able to offset some of the declining enrollment in those other categories. However, we can't always depend on that increase to continue. And we also are anticipating that that may have plateaued and level off, and we may not see the same numbers coming in next year, as we do a really good job of reclassifying our students, and they are no longer English learners once they have gone through that reclassification process. So just a reminder of our enrollment trends when it comes to supplemental funding. I probably need to slow down for our translators, so I apologize. The next slide is just looking specifically at our budget, and this is another indicator of why we would need to make reductions for next year within our LCAP plan and supplemental funding. The primary reason is highlighted at the top of this slide, and that would be our carryover dollars and a significant change in the number of carryover dollars we have coming in this year versus what we anticipate we will have coming in next year. And why is that? The answer to that question is that we have had a large carryover for the past couple of years, primarily because we were able to use COVID funding or COVID dollars during the pandemic to pay for some of the items within the LCAP. So those monies had a shelf life and had to be expended by a certain date. And so we took advantage of using those funds during that time to save some of our LCAP funds for carryover. Additionally, we have some carryover because we've had vacancies or other things or expenditures that didn't go through during the pandemic and during distance learning. What you can see is those carryover dollars have been spent down. They've been able to sustain the programs and services we've been able to provide, but we are not seeing those same carryover dollars after going into next year to sustain us the way they have in the past. So twofold: enrollment trends going down. Second is we've spent down a lot of our carryover dollars, and that's why we're discussing some of the reductions that we have brought forward. We can revisit these slides at the end, but I'm now going to turn over the presentation to Dr. Paramo to speak to where we're looking to restructure and reduce in spending.
Thank you, Dr. Anders, and thank you to everyone who is participating tonight. I want to first take a look at the slide that Robin just went over, and you can see on that slide that the dollar amount that we are needing to cut in order to balance the budget is $1.2 million. So to balance the LCAP budget, we have to come up with cuts in that dollar amount. What that doesn't provide is it doesn't provide services, new services for our larger EL population. You saw on the first slide that while the total enrollment is going down, the enrollment for ELs is going up. And a lot of those are new immigrants. They're families that are coming in from the Ukraine. They're families that are coming in from Armenia. A lot of our countries that have seen a lot of turmoil, those families are coming over, and we can see that in our data. So even though the gap is 1.2 million, I'm having to cut more than that to be able to provide services for the EL kids because they are our largest targeted subgroup. And those numbers have increased. We have had teachers and administrators come to our board meetings and speak about how their EL classes are different, how they're struggling, how it's not just 2 languages anymore, it's 3 and 4 languages. And so we are in a position to have to respond. And this money, this funding source is specifically for them. So I have to find a way to do that. So we're actually cutting more than 1.2 million to be able to provide those services for English language learners. Just wanted to make sure that I say that. And before I start looking at the cuts, and we'll go over, also want to say that there is absolutely not a single thing in this LCAP plan that, in my opinion, was fluff or didn't need to be there. All these things are in there because this is what our school community said was important. So no matter what I choose or what we choose to eliminate, it's going to be painful. It's going to be really painful because there's no easy way to do this. We have tried, we've worked with this group, we've also worked with principals to find ways where we can cut and mitigate any negativity. And I'll go through that when I mention these cuts and tell you how we're trying to mitigate how this plays out. So I want to start with the first item, extended school year. This is specifically summer school for ELs. I cannot have this go away. This is compulsory. It's for a very specific targeted subgroup. We are not losing this service. It's simply being paid for out of ELOP funds because we can do that ethically and remove it from LCAP. So it's helping to close the gap in the budget. So that item will remain. It's just being funded differently. The newest item, which was a really hard decision that we have come up with based on our previous meeting, and that is to outsource our summer school program. Let me just tell you that that's very difficult for me to do. It's not what I want to do. So what's the rationale behind it? I'll explain. One is that it's not compulsory. We're not required by law to do that. It's a good thing though, and that's why we've done it, but we're not required to do that. Second is we have the ability to provide options for kids to still do credit recovery or initial credit using online platforms that are either for free or for cost. There are both platforms that we can make available to students. So it's not hurting our socioeconomically disadvantaged kids because there's still a free option for them to make up credit. Why would I do this? Because it is a savings of $542,000 that I need to be able to provide services for our English language learners because I don't have any other money. And I can't skip providing service for English language learners. So I needed to find a way to do this. Next one, our PBIS costs. That dollar amount can be removed because that was the dollar amount that we had to pay Los Angeles County Office of Ed under contract when we implemented the PBIS program. So on the natural, that has already phased out. This was our last year, so that expenditure does not have to move forward. So that's not hurting us in any way. It was just a natural end to that contract. The next item is secondary intervention specialists. There are 5 in total, 1 at each of the middle schools and 1 at each of the high schools. Not an easy decision to make. So I'll make a few comments about that. I think they're invaluable, but they're also at schools that have multiple administrators, where that is not the case at elementary, where there's only 1. The middle schools have 3 administrators, the high schools have 5. So is this going to be easy? No, but they have additional people. Similarly, the middle schools have Title I funds. I don't micromanage how they spend Title I funds. There is the ability for a principal to augment, supplement, fly a position that they could pay for out of Title I to keep their person in as a whole person or partially. That is something that each of our 3 middle school principals will have to decide when they put their Title I plan together. By contract, because the 5 secondary intervention specialists have the most seniority, they are legally able to bump someone from elementary because the 5 secondary folks have the highest seniority. So they have the ability to do that. That is by contract. So I can't do anything about that. That's what the rules are, and we'll have to follow the rules. CDS, the expenditures for CDS and instructional assistants, I really want to take my time with this to make sure that I'm explaining this clearly. These items are coming out of the LCAP budget. That doesn't mean they won't be funded. They could be funded out of general fund because I have money to put together a program for CDS that will contract because the population size is contracting, but those positions can be held under general fund. These are the dollar amounts that we're paying for these positions through LCAP that need to be removed in order for us to close the budget, to close the deficit in the budget. So I want to make sure that I say that and that people hear that. The next item is in the amount of $5,000. It's for GATE. The reason why this has been in the LCAP plan is because there are students who are twice exceptional, which means that they could be GATE, but they could also be special ed. They could be GATE, they can also be EL. So we have kept this item in there. I am removing it from the LCAP budget, but I will fund it in general fund. DEI supplementary materials. We had allocated $10,000. We're removing that. Facing History is a program that we paid for. Our teachers and educators went through the professional development. So this actually came to its natural end and it does not need to be funded for next year. We did have $25,000 allocated for a DEI mental health consultant. The idea was that this person would focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion as it pertained to social emotional learning. And I would love to keep that. But if we're needing to cut over $1.2 million, that's one of the areas that we've decided we need to cut. We're hoping that with a new DEI coordinator that we just hired, when we hired the director of secondary ed, it's part of Dr. Macias's job responsibilities that he'll be able to fill in the gaps with the help of other district staff. Next one is DEI site lead collaboration. So that item I want to make sure we're clear about. This was a pot of money that we could set aside for our DEI teacher leads if they needed to have time to put together professional development for their school site. So you could have 3 teachers you could have Muir, Huerta, and Luther, DEI leaders, ask for a day to plan professional development for their staff, and that pot of money would pay for their substitute that day in order for them to get the work done. We had that initially at $70,000. The reason why we cut that in half is because on the natural, all we spent in a year was $35,000. So it made sense to cut that in half because that's all we were using. And we could reallocate that $35,000 to other expenditures. Now, when this item originally came forward in our previous LCAP meetings, it was a reduction by 50% to reduce elementary library coordinators. Part of the money that we saved from pulling back $542,917 for secondary summer school is being used for library coordinators so that the reduction is 25%, not 50%. I want it to be 0%. I want it to be 0%, but I got to find areas to cut. And if I'm being really honest, a bulk of where the cuts have been coming from are secondary. There's reasons for that, but I don't have anything else to cut in secondary. So we were looking at the elementary programs and trying to figure out what can we cut that isn't going to destroy something, but it's going to get us to the finish line in terms of reducing the deficit in the LCAP plan. So it's 25% reduction of elementary library coordinators, with my firm commitment to get that back to 100% whenever we can. And I'm hoping that it would be sooner rather than later. Response to intervention was originally fully funded at $500,000. When we came at our last LCAP meeting, we suggested that be cut by 50%, which means $250,000 would be the line item budgeted for that. We are only reducing it by 25%. So it's a reduction of 125, which means it's funded at 375. How was I able to do that? Again, that was money that was saved because we outsource secondary summer school. So we're using that $542,000 to bring back time to library coordinators and to bring back time for RTI at the elementary. And the last item is a program that we've had in Burbank for a long time. It's called Peer Assistance Review. This was to provide coaching and mentor support for teachers who might be struggling. This is a voluntary program. And so currently at the moment, we don't have, someone is holding that position, but we don't have anybody utilizing the service. So I can't afford to keep doing that. And so that's the service. That $28,000 will go to close the deficit in the LCAP plan. In terms of a process, I have to, compulsory by the state of California, have to do a mid-year LCAP presentation to the public at a board meeting. That will happen on February 1st. On February 1st, we will communicate to the community where we are in the LCAP process. And at that time, I will be sharing the same thing I'm sharing with you to the general public. They are recommendations for cuts that'll be made public, will be presented to the board. The board will signal to me whether or not they're okay with me moving forward with that, because on February 15th, which is the next board meeting, we need to officially begin the layoff process. So that's when we start moving the ball, because we need to have this all wrapped up by legal deadlines by March 15th. So those are the timelines. That's why I'm presenting it today. That's why we're presenting it at the board on February 1st. And then it'll become official at the board meeting on February 15th. Next slide. So I'm going to go over new items for the LCAP. What I want to say right off the bat is we're letting the public know where we're adding new dollars. We have time to work out the details. I don't have a February 1st, February 15th, or March 15th deadline to figure out the details. I can have until May, when we take the final draft of LCAP, to provide the community with details on the areas where we're going to financially support new things. So I'm not going to have a lot of detail, but the names of the items should signal to you what this is about and what it's for. So the first item in the amount of $220,000 is to be used for elementary English learner development support. So again, that $542,000 for summer school, what did we do with all that money? Part of it went to fund additional hours to library coordinators. Part of it went to increase time for RTI, and $220,000 is going to provide support for English language learners because that population has increased and because we need to provide support for them. Secondary EL support in core classrooms. This is to provide EL support in the areas of science, social studies, and math. They already have supports that are in the contract for English class. So this is to extend those support into the other three key academic areas. Now, the last item is a small piece of that summer school budget that was 540 something, 26,000. Why do I need to keep that there? Because I need to still provide summer school for special ed. So that is to have extended school year for special ed kids. That's to keep credit recovery for special ed RSP kids. And that also pays for one person to manage summer school. So that's enough money to do it. It's obviously very contracted based on what we've had as a summer school budget in the past. Not my favorite thing to do.
So those are the slides we wanted to present tonight. And then we have some discussion, but just remind all of our viewers and participants tonight that we will be discussing at the upcoming board meeting on February 1st. This set of slides will be presented again with the opportunity for our board to give feedback, as well as it is going to be an agenda item, public comment on this presentation. With that said, I'm going to open it up first to any of our in-person speakers. If you'd like to comment or open up any discussion, we do have a mic so that our people virtually can hear. Any? Just a second while they step up.
Yes, thank you. Hi, I'm Lisa Dyson. I am the library coordinator at Dolores Huerta Middle School, and I came here originally to speak on behalf of our elementary library coordinators. Dr. Paramo, you explained that. I mean, I know it hurts your heart and your soul as well. So now we're down to cutting 25%. So my question is, it's 25% of the hours at each site, not 25% of the staff thing.
You're asking a very, very important question, and I'm going to give you a straight answer. The classified union has the right to negotiate the effects of a 25% reduction. So in our minds, and I speak to principals, they would like to keep all 11 people and just reduce their time by 25%. That is something based on contractual language that can be negotiated, and the union has a right to work with the district on what it actually looks like. So I can't be specific other than when we had originally talked about it, just naturally, that's what the idea was, that we would keep 11 people and we'd reduce their hours by a quarter. So I can't tell you that that's what it's going to happen for sure, because that has to go through a negotiations process.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you. Because I know what they would like. And so we will, hopefully they're all listening and know what they need to do. And just to be clear, I know we're talking, some have already been reduced. I mean, they're at 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours a day.
The average 5.
That's Alicia Boot, who is the library coordinator at Burroughs. I'm so sorry, Burbank High. She's the numbers person. So my next question then, and it's probably dovetailing on this one, is that, so then it just would be like losing an hour. Well, when you work that out, which, I mean, we're not going to lie, they're already squeezing everybody in. It's really important. So what they do is kind of amazing with seeing every child, and that counts the English language learners that we're receiving, I mean, there's that too. There's that piece of it.
Totally understand. And I agree.
Yeah, I know you do. Before I leave and before I jump into this, and my heart hurts, I'm just going to say this for the secondary intervention specialists, because ours is freaking amazing. And I said frickin'. And the change that this person makes, and all of them do at their individual sites, is priceless. So it's hard for me to see that that's on the chopping block, and that there is in some way we can find funding for them, because I understand it's also very important at the elementary level. I think if we actually could start there in a better way, we wouldn't need as much at the secondary levels. But right now we do. And that counts as well with with our new populations coming in. And then back to the new populations, because I'm also part of that as well. The money that you're now going to be using for them, is that for translators? The support that's going to come to them. It's not specific, so I'm not quite sure where that money's going.
You're absolutely right. And the reason why it's not specific is because Dr. Kanopik is working with the elementary principals to figure out how best to support them and how best to use that $220,000.
Good, because they do
Sure.
need it. We need to help them. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We all had better answers.
Hi. So you answered a lot of the things I was going to address in my very long speech. But my questions also are, if we cut the library coordinators by 25%, the site could still find that percentage for them if they chose to. Is that an option? Or like PTA, can we find that money elsewhere? It doesn't have to be LCAP, does it?
No, the challenge is going to be for the high schools because they don't receive Title I funds. There is.
I mean, for the library coordinators.
Right. So some of our some of our elementaries do have Title I funds.
Oh, I see.
So they have been able to leverage an hour when in the past. So it's still possible for them to do that, but they will put their plan together for how they're going to spend Title I, and there's a process for that being approved. So they would have to work that into their Title I plan. The schools, elementary schools that are not Title I, are going to have a much more difficult time being able to fund that because they don't have a huge site budget.
Okay. That was my question, was if it could just find another, not that you haven't thought of it. But thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Mr. Aprama, you used a word for the summer school English language learners that left me a little bit confused. I don't know if you said compulsory or mandatory. Is that by statute or just you feel strongly about it?
No, that's a really good, it's a really good question. It's not statutory. It is, so in the same way, we saved money for special ed summer school. This support is in the same realm that these special targeted groups can't afford to regress during the summer by not having exposure to the academic area. So if they had the summer off and didn't have the ability to still keep fresh what they learned in English language arts and math, the regression would be really hard when they're out for 10 weeks. And so when I use the word compulsory, it's because I feel really passionate that this is essential.
Got it. My kid works for Costco and he's part of a program that Costco has. And today he volunteered at Brent Hart School. And that's something Costco supports. Now, you mandate that your high school kids put in so many volunteer hours. So my thought was perhaps you could put an emphasis on those volunteer hours, getting those students to work with the kids that need it rather than spreading them out to the various things within our community. Additionally, with the new students coming from these different countries that you mentioned, perhaps we already have seniors or folks here that speak these languages, and there could be a special reach out to those people who speak these languages for volunteerism, because I think you might be surprised that people want to help and they feel strongly that they can.
Great idea.
Thank you. I want to give you an example of technology, and there's a question at the end. A short time ago, relatively, if you took a taxi cab, you were going to be riding in an old police car, filthy. The driver probably didn't speak English and he probably stank as well. And today we're doing things different because of technology. So I wonder, I see the state testing results and only about a quarter of our students do well and the rest are failing. And there's always some discussion about this fact of why it is. So with your technology man sitting to your right, what can we do differently here in Burbank to introduce, and I'm not an expert on this, I know very little about it, but artificial intelligence as a tool to teach. I've called on you to do better and to do more as our new leader. And what thoughts have you given, if any, to this type of thing? Now, I understand the constraints that you have with unions and the elimination of jobs, but this is something like the taxi cab analogy, that there is a possibility that things could change the model of how we educate our students. Because we both want the same thing, which is a better education for our students. Thank you.
I want to share with you that I want to give you 3 examples that you have brought forward in the last couple months that we have been working on and have given serious attention to. We are working with Dr. Macias, who just started, by the way, not too long ago. He's only been here for a couple weeks. But one of the items he is working on and has already made strides because he's reached out to other school districts that already do this, but we're looking into the feasibility and the results of having cell phone lockers in the classroom. So there's been recent research on that and schools have implemented that. Personally, I think it's a little early, but there are schools that have been doing it. So we're reaching out to figure out what they find as the benefit. Is it really working? And try to learn from them to see whether or not that's something we want to bring to Burbank. You talked about block scheduling 2 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago in a board meeting. I will tell you that I personally led the charge 10 years ago at John Burroughs High School to do block scheduling. It did not pass. There are contractual constraints on being able to make something like that happen. After probably a year and a half of investing time in it, it just got voted down. So Burroughs has a resurgence of looking into block scheduling. They have been working on it all year long, and they could bring something forward if it passes, but it's definitely something that has been part of the conversation at Burroughs all year long. The last one is artificial intelligence. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. There are constraints. There are contractual constraints. We have to bring people along. People like our teachers and our staff, they need to see the value in something. It doesn't work. The benefit doesn't happen when you force something on someone. So it's really becoming educated and creating a vision so that people do buy into it and can see the benefits of it. So Dr. Anders has worked on language for a potential policy for artificial intelligence. And we have that. We have it in draft form. We are honestly waiting to look at more research-based data on this to be able to make a decision on how we want to move that forward. We have shared some of those ideas through our governance committees to our board members and to the people that were in the committees, and have explained what that could potentially look like. But at the moment, it's still in draft form. All of this to say that we really do listen to the public, to you specifically, and to the things that you have brought up. And we do talk about them in cabinet, and we do move things forward. Sometimes you don't get to hear about that because it happened in a cabinet meeting or it happened in a discussion with my check-in with a board member, but those discussions happen. And we are working on those things. And there's stuff that we'll continue to work on and bring forward once we get to a point where we're ready to make a recommendation.
Just wanted to share a thought on AI and technology in our instruction practices. We've made a lot of really great strides during the pandemic in transitioning to really incorporating technology into our instruction, but also utilizing it in ways that don't just replace a common piece of paper and pencil. We use a lot of programs, Google Classroom, the Google Suite. Our students are using those on the regular at home. I've kind of transitioned to students having access to their curriculum, whether they're at school, at home, through online textbooks and other online programs that we provide, including one such as iReady. So I'm really proud of the work we've done through the pandemic and where we've come out of the pandemic to continue to utilize best practices when it comes to that. When it comes to AI, we're already using AI. So we use tools such as Snap and Read and some other things to help provide translation for our students. Where I think AI has the most educational benefit is helping our existing staff provide differentiation or small group instruction. It's not going to replace a person in the room or the instruction provided in the room. It's only going to be able to augment or supplement by layering on maybe translation, which we're already doing, but other things that could provide some specific resources to students that need them. What we're all familiar with right now when it comes to AI is AI chat. And interacting with the chat bots, those don't have safeguards in place yet for our students. And so we want to ensure that if we have something that is going to be providing responses to students or basically interacting with students, that they have the appropriate safeguards to not provide information or answers or correspondence that's one, either not appropriate, or two, compromises their relationship with their education and our school district. So we're continuing to monitor that. Things are evolving very quickly, just like it is in all other industries, but we're excited about the potential, but want to make sure we do things the correct way. We have another in-person speaker, and then we'll take speakers from the virtual audience.
Hello, I'm a parent at Roosevelt. I just wanted to follow up on the earlier question about supplementing the 25% cut to librarians. Are PTAs permitted legally or otherwise able to fundraise to make up for that deficit?
Honestly, I don't have the answer to that. Andy, if you're on the virtual platform, do you know if that's allowed? It is.
Oh, great.
Yep,
Thank you.
got it.
Okay, so do we have any virtual participants that will have a question or want to speak tonight?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So, obviously I feel very passionate about these children that are coming from other countries and getting access to everything. And I'm worried about like maybe some kids from Russia that aren't getting the help that they need mentally and emotionally. And also, what about maybe some after school tutoring for free for them? Because I'm thinking maybe their parents don't speak English and they barely speak English as well. So how can they get help with homework and things like that? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. So one of the functions of the elementary, well, let me take a step back. We are in agreement with the CSEA union. We are going to look at updating the job description for intervention specialists for the elementary to include specific language about some of the tasks that they're already doing. For example, at many school sites, they are implementing second step with kids, and that is social emotional curriculum. So that is going to be written into the job description so that every elementary school will have a intervention specialist that is implementing second step. That is the component that addresses the I think you used mental health, the mental health, social, emotional aspects that these students could be missing out on. And when you implement that, the intervention specialist will be able to see if a student needs additional help, and we will work with the principal on responding to that. In terms of tutoring, that happens. We do. That's why part of the reason why we increased our TI dollars. It was going to be cut in half, and we reduced it by 25%, which is 25% too much, but we're trying to make sure that those dollars are there to support them. In the future, what I think our district needs, given the increase in our new immigrants, is a liaison, a newcomer liaison that would help, particularly at our schools that have the higher numbers of ELs. And there was part of me that dreamed that would happen this year, but we're in a different budget situation than we had expected. And so I'm not able to do that this year, but that's something that we're looking forward to implementing in the future. I know Dr. Miller at John Muir Middle School has been able to leverage his Title I dollars, and he does have this type of position, but not everybody has Title I dollars, and so it's hard to do that systemically. But that is part of the goal for the future.
And I want to remind too that our Burbank Public Library does offer tutoring in the community for families that need help with that.
Thank you. That's fantastic to hear that.
Any other questions or speakers from our virtual? We're just scanning the chat. Yep. Question was not sure if it was addressed because I logged in late, but will kindergarten be doing a split schedule, early bird, late bird? Because how that is addressed has a profound effect on our multilingual students. Okay, so we have 3 or 4 schools in the district that will be doing early bird, late bird. 6, yeah, the other 6 or 7 will not be doing an early bird, late bird. So that's in the planning for next year, and you can work with your school site or your principal to find out more information about early bird, late bird. Any other questions? While we wait to see, just a reminder, we will be presenting on the LCAP to the school board on February 1st. We do have a series of LCAP meetings this spring where we will talk about our metrics to measure and begin discussing new items and how we want to measure progress towards our goals when it comes to all of the action items we will be continuing with for next year. So we will send out more information to invite you all to participate in that process. But otherwise, the next available opportunity on this topic will be February 1st at the school board. Any closing comments?
I'm sorry,
Thank
I'm not sure if you guys can hear me. My name is Arpane Osepian, and I just want to thank the board for their transparency on the budget. I've been following this from the start, from the surveys and different revisions that were made, and I do want to appreciate everyone's transparency. I know it's hard to make cuts, but I do appreciate the rationale and explanations.
That means a lot to us. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a splendid evening, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.